So it's a bit of a philosophy of really looking at anything that you do and how can you get many wins and many upsides, and if things change, you're ahead anyway. It doesn't make any difference. How you going in Ho Chi Minh at the moment? I thought I would share a bit of a case study and use it as a way of sort of illustrating a bit of a principle of an approach that I like to use when I'm doing projects or just different things that I'm doing. And I guess the idea behind this is to look at whenever you do something, instead of just getting one benefit from it, how do you get multiple benefits? How can you do something that you can obtain multiple benefits from and have lots of win-win situations that come from it? It's something that I look really closely at, and I think buying property is a really good example of that. So the backdrop behind this is I bought a piece of land. It's over an acre of land, not far, a couple of kilometres from my house, and I wanted that property because fundamentally at where I am, it's too steep. It's really steep property where I live at the moment. Really difficult to put a shed on, lots of rock. I've got a few cars, few things that move, and so I really needed to have a bigger space to put them in, and so I've acquired this property, this block. And so I want to sort of share how I went about it and why this property, this block that we've acquired, has more than one benefit. It really has that multiple benefits and many win-wins. Obviously the first and the key driver for me in purchasing this property was to have a suitable block, nice and flat, large enough that I could actually build a shed on. I put some criteria around it, some constraints where it needed to be 2 kilometres from my house, no more than 2, which it is, and that's what the original motivation was. But when you look at this block, then there's other benefits that flow from acquiring that, rather than just getting a piece of land, which I could have done. I could have just bought a piece of land somewhere and put a shed up on it. It's not that hard to do. It's not really how I would approach it. So what are some of these other benefits? The first thing was that this block has a house on it. So what I didn't want to do was just buy a piece of land. I wanted to have a property that had a house on it that I could actually sort of separate from the block and rent it out for either long-term rental or short-term accommodation, because that's another benefit from it. And so that improves the cash flow. I can generate cash flow from the block rather than just having a piece of land that I can't really do much with outside of using it. So that's another benefit, isn't it? You know, by having a house on it, I could rent it, and then that can improve cash flow. I can generate income from it. The other thing is I always look at what's the opportunity for growth. When the original use for that block that I had is no longer there, I want to change, situations change, what else can I do with that block? So that was another thing that I looked at. So this particular block is adjoining commercial property. So along two entire boundaries of this fairly large piece of land for where it's located are commercial shops. And so when we looked at the property, I made some inquiries and found that that block is also earmarked in the future for a change in zoning. And what that means is that at the moment it's got a house and there's a piece of land, but in the future it'll be able to be changed from mixed use commercial residential, which means you could build shops on it and apartments or shops and residential accommodation. And that's something that you can't do that at the moment, but it's definitely something that you can do in the future. So when we went and talked to our town planner, he sort of outlined that for us, and so that was another tick. We went, well, that's pretty cool. That's something we can do in the future. So it's another win-win situation with that particular block for some upside in the future. The other thing about this block is that it's big enough that we could actually subdivide it now. So we've got the opportunity, if we wanted to, is to subdivide the block, cut it into half, and then have 2 blocks, and you could actually sell one, or you could put a house and a house, you could put another house on it, all those sorts of things. So there's another upside where there's the opportunity to create another separate title, a separate block with it, which you could do now, or we could do somewhere else in the future. Yeah, just something that we thought of. And so these are different principles. So when I look at this piece of land, it's not just a piece of land that suits my needs now, it has these upsides. So what it means in the future, there's lots of scope and opportunity for other wins that can come from it. Because as we know, life changes. Things happen now and then they change. And so then your circumstances and what you wanted at one point in time isn't really relevant anymore. And so rather than then getting stuck, for example, I could just bought a piece of land that didn't have any of those benefits, and then I bought the land, I was using it, and I go, well, it's not really suiting me, then I would just sell it without any upside. But this property has the ability to then satisfy what I'm trying to achieve now, but also has plenty of upside. And that's the bit of the philosophy that, you know, I think it's really good to use when you're looking at projects or looking at doing something, you know, and even thinking about different things that you do within your business or different things you do within your life. How can you get many benefits and many outcomes and many wins from it as opposed to just one? And what actually happened with this block, as it turned out, was that there was 2 properties adjoining our block that were owned by a particular one person, and he approached us and he said, would you like to buy my properties right on our boundary? So I looked at that and went, oh, that's really interesting. And because now I know that there's the opportunity for this zoning might change in the future, so having more land or more area makes a lot of sense. And so then we negotiated a deal and we acquired the 2 adjoining properties as well. And we were then able to not move the fence by legally moving the fences. When I say legally, it's not, we didn't change the titles, but we were able to physically move the fences. So I had more land because these are quite large blocks. And then we had the ability to expand what I needed to do, and I had more opportunity within the property. So that just towards that aim of having the ability to change the use of this in the future, that contributes to that because now I've got a bit more space. So it's a really good philosophy. So when I look at this property now, I've built the shed on it. As it turned out, I was quite flexible in the approach, and I originally bought the original block to build the shed, but then after I acquired the adjoining properties, it made more sense to put the shed on the back of one of those, which is what I've done. So the original block I still have. And so we're also now looking at the ability because we've got the land and we've got the ability to put other accommodation on these properties, and that's going to help us generate some more cash flow to generate more income, because that's another benefit that comes from it. So it's a bit of a philosophy of really looking at anything that you do and how can you get many wins and many upsides, and if things change, you're ahead anyway, it doesn't make any difference. And so because of having a look at, rather than just buying a piece of land and then saying, okay, we've got a piece of land, you know, there's no income that we can generate from it. What we've actually done is acquired a piece of land that's got plenty of upside in the future. The value of this property's gone up, and we are generating cash flow from it now, which is really cool. I'm doing what I wanted to achieve from it. That's why I acquired the property initially, but now it's got these other upsides, which opens up more possibilities and opportunities. So I just wanted to share that. You know, it can be really cool to sort of think about, it's just how my brain's wired, and I'd really recommend that you have a look at that rather than just going, I'm going to do this, and the reason I'm doing this is because I want to achieve that. Have a look at it and see if you've got these other benefits and these other wins that can flow from that, so that there's upside and there's contingencies and there's really win-win arrangements that can take place. Okay, so that's what I wanted to share with you today, and I'll catch up with you in the next video. Take care, ciao for now. Thanks for listening. As you know, we grow organically. It's really people like yourself that enable us to get the word out. If you like what you hear, please give us a rating, leave a good comment and share this with your friends. Thank you.